Last week we got started on putting the fence post in for this fence around our garden, and in today's video we're going to get the fence done. Also, finally got my hair cut, so you don't have to look at that anymore. This post set up really nice and solid. There are 4 remaining posts on this section, which are all going to be wood posts, and then the rest of the posts are T-posts. Trying to work efficiently and get these 2 posts set before groundwater comes up in these holes. This hole's already starting to get some groundwater in the bottom. For those of you who saw our video a couple weeks ago about grinding feed, you saw we used this Harbor Freight cement mixer for mixing the feed. I got a lot of good questions on that video about cost analysis and that kind of stuff, and I'll be making a follow-up video going into depth on that. But one point is that this mixer is a dual-purpose machine. It's not just for mixing feed, it's also for mixing concrete, and that's what I like in tools around the homestead. I don't like buying stuff that's just a one-task machine where avoidable. Looks to me like I'm a little light on water. We're putting a 16-foot gate right here. And so the gate's gonna hinge on this post. That's why we're going with a 4x6. And then there's gonna be an H-brace back to this post. So I wanna get these filled solid with concrete. It'll probably be 2 bags per hole. I wanna make sure that I can mix the concrete and put it in the hole already mixed and not mix it with groundwater, because then I'll know that I've got really good set concrete. It's important on these posts because we're holding a very heavy gate. This is what I was going for, because these posts I really want to be set really good, and this is thin enough I can really pack it in there good. All right, rinse and repeat. We'll do the rest on this hole. The main purpose of this fence is to keep the deer out. We've had 2 back-to-back unsuccessful gardens because the deer just ate everything. So we're going with an 8-foot high fence. We're gonna do 4-foot high welded wire, and then we'll have 3 strands of electric wire above that. No water in these holes down here, which is good. This fence post, the gate will latch to it, and we are going to be pulling the wire from it. So it'll, to a certain extent, have the same load as a corner post. So I'm basically anchoring it in that way. But it's not going to have as much load as the others in terms of that heavy gate. We've got a post roughly every 8 feet to anchor the welded wire, and then we're about 15 to 16 feet apart for the 3 strands of electric above that. Now that we've got all the wood posts in the ground, we'll move on to getting the T-posts knocked out. These are 10-foot T-posts, so I am going to need a ladder. This run's got 5 posts. We got 2 tall and 3 short. So I'm going to go ahead and knock out the tall ones. We're going to do the same thing with the T-post, alternating short and tall, so that we'll have about 15 feet spacing between the tall posts to support the electric wire. And I'm just going down, so we got 8 feet sticking out of the ground. Since I started my string line on the corner, the shared corner, I don't have to retie it. I'll just loop it around this way. And it looks like we'll be able to get this wrapped up just as the sun's going down. Still counts as getting it all done today. It's been basically 24 hours since I finished getting these posts set in concrete. I'm gonna go around now and take the rest of the braces off and get the soil backfilled, and then we can start getting wire stretched. Let's start it right here, because this is relatively flat. We can pull that way. And I'll cut this and pull it back down this way. With that, we'll deal with that tomorrow. We're gonna go ahead and get this H-brace put together. Start by just squaring off this end where I cut it with the chainsaw. Flip it around. Gonna measure our distance here. Looks like we're just under 83 inches, 82 and a half, 82 and 3/4. that'll squeeze in there. That'll work. Our height doesn't really matter on this post because we've got plenty of height in terms of where we set the brace. And really we want it as high as we can on this post. We don't want to be all the way to the top on this guy. I'm gonna go just a couple inches down and we'll carry this over level, and that's where we'll set it on this post. So right there is level. There's my mark. I'm gonna use these spikes coming in through the post like that. And I unfortunately don't have a nice long drill bit to drill through. The longest bit I've got is this paddle bit. So I'm gonna have to drill through from both sides. Get it set right like that. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get this spike driven in deeper to hold the post in place. Now we're gonna slide this down until we're level. Which is right there. So that'll tell us where we need to drill. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this up for just a second and drill all the way through the post. And now that we're all the way through the post, we'll get our brace right on level. It's right on level there. Then I'm just gonna start my drill bit into it. Drill in as far as I can. I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up. Got our hole started right there. I'll go ahead and get this started here. I'm going through just until you can just start to see the tip of the nail. So I'm just gonna start a staple down here. This is what's gonna hold our wire on this end. That's plenty for now. We'll pound it in a little bit further once we get our wire stretched. This is 14 gauge wire. 12 would be better, but this is what I've got. I've got the wire coming in around this side of that post. I'm gonna pull back and come around the back side of this post, and then we'll wrap on my nail and stretch it around, and we're gonna have, there'll be a cross. Twist them nice and tight. Pull that tight. Tap on it and help it kind of work its way. It's free to slide on this nail end and on the staple. Tap it and then crank a little bit more until you break it. And that's why you use 12 gauge. So we can do this again tomorrow. Been working the last couple nights to get the welded wire stretched around. Woven wire, it hinges as you go up and down the hill. With welded wire, you have to compensate. The best method that I've found to compensate is to cut the wire at the post where you're changing angles. I don't actually remove it, I just make a cut and then overlap. Wrap these tails over as much as I can. Some of them I'll just kind of fold like that. I can't wrap all the way, but this guy I will try and weave it around if I can. And then we'll staple it in. All that's left is this one little section here. We got to get our H-brace tension wire on first before we can get the welded wire on. I was looking for 12 gauge wire, 12 and a half gauge I guess, but all I was able to track down was 9 gauge, which this is going to be plenty strong enough. We're going to do the same sort of a loop pattern that we did last time in terms of making an X. There we go. That's how you do it. I'm actually gonna try and put my tensioner a little bit higher. So let's pull this guy. Because you don't want the tensioner to be right where the X crosses, and that's one of the things I did last time, which I shouldn't have done. All right, now we're doing what we want to do. Go ahead and slide that. We're sitting on our nail nice. Got a nice cross. We're gonna try not to break it this time, remember? That's our goal. That's pretty close, huh? I'm gonna go just a little bit tighter. Yeah, I don't really wanna go any tighter than that, actually. I intentionally put the nut end to be able to turn this on the inside because our welded wire is going on the outside, and this way I'll be able to get in here and tighten this once we got the wire on. I started last night getting most of the insulators put on. I'm using these screw-in insulators in the wood posts because they're on the corner. The nail-in insulators work fine and are cheaper, but they don't work well on corners. For the starting and end points, I'm using these end loops that I just made up to slip them over the post. Pull them tight, then just give them 1 or 2 wraps. They don't need to be super tight at all. This is 12.5 gauge aluminum wire, not high tensile wire. So just pull it tight, wrap it tight a couple of times. Just pulling it really as tight as I can by hand. That's all we're going for. Just pass my roll underneath, and we'll pull from there. Now we'll just pull it tight again. And I'm gonna wrap it once more on this one as well. Then just rinse and repeat. It's gonna take a little bit longer on this run because it's gonna be a ladder at every post, but it's not that big of a deal. This gate opening is a walk-through gate, so the upper wire being 8.5 feet, we're just gonna cross it straight across above the gate, and that'll continue the loop all the way around. And then we'll get this looped, pulled nice and tight. Then we'll pull it back around, loop back one more time, and terminate it right here. Well, that wraps up the fence itself. All that's left now is gonna be our 2 gates. So that'll be our next episode in the garden. It's already starting to sprinkle. It's supposed to rain 1.5 inches tomorrow. So I don't know when that's gonna be, but thanks for watching. I do really appreciate it. And I hope to see you back here for our next one. I think this tape measure might be officially dead. It's almost broken off at 35 inches. And it generally doesn't retract past that amount, unless I get really lucky. Oh yeah, now we're doing it. Oh, yep, it's dead. It did it. Got my trusty 35-inch tape measure.